make a start because we're just after 7 o'clock. Welcome everyone to tonight's forum here at the Town Hall. As Jim's just said, my name's Councillor Anne Elliott and I'm chair of the Central Forum tonight, and alongside me is Councillor Jason Atkin, who's the vice chair, and if I start to cough I'm going to bring him in very, very quickly. We are expecting Councillor Lewis Rose, who's the leader of the council, but he's running slightly late, so he will be with us shortly. I'm not going to introduce everybody else who's on the list now. I will bring them in when it's time for their presentation and introduce them then, so if that's okay. On the agenda tonight, we have the good news. We have the Hurst Farm Regeneration project. We have the Matlock and Glossop firemen with us. We have the spending proposals and the community safety update as well. And then we've got the usual question time at the end. We have got with us tonight representatives from the Derbyshire Constabulary, who are down here on the front row, who are taking part in the presentation about the CCTV. And we're also expecting our police crime commissioner, who's also, I think he's just arrived. Has he just arrived? No. Later on, who's going to be able to answer some questions at the very end under the question time. So if you could save those until the end, that would be very much appreciated. Anyway, so we'll make a start, and we're going to make a start with the good news from Dorcas Bunton, who is our Chief Executive on the Council. Thank you very much, Dorcas.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to run through very quickly some good news from the Council, stuff that we've done since we last met with you that we think, well, we hope you'll be interested in what we've been getting up to. Bakewell has had its first park run, which is very reliant on local volunteers. Our sports development team has been involved in setting that up. It started up with a 5-kilometre run, and we had 250 runners, which is a great success for the first park run in Bakewell. I won't say much at all about community safety, about CCTV, etc., because Karen is going to be covering that in her presentation. But lots of good news there. Community engagement. Under that service, we've developed the open space strategy, which clubs should find useful if they're putting in bids for external funding, that the council actually has a strategy that they can develop that within that framework, so it's immediately seen that the council will be supportive of that proposal. We've got the Great British Spring Clean that the council has been supporting for a number of years now, on the 2nd to the 4th of March. If any of your communities are interested in joining that venture, please get in touch. We can supply good idea. We can supply litter pickers and things like that to help out. So please do get in touch. Parish councils, community groups, etc. Our legal services team have worked very hard with our corporate director and deputy chief executive on negotiating a new 25 lease deal with the ABC. What that new lease has done is safeguarded and secured the long-term tenancy of the ABC in Bakewell and the livestock market, but it's also made significant savings for us and reduced the council's risk quite significantly. So great piece of work there by our corporate director and assisted by the legal team in our estates section. Our website is increasing its coverage across the district. We're getting more and more people visiting that. That's going to become more and more important as the council transforms its services and tries to make a lot more of them self-service through the website. So the more we can attract people to using our website, the better. And we've had an increase of 13.4% over the last year. Our housing team have been shortlisted, we're very proud of this, for the UK Housing Awards as the Strategic Local Housing Authority of the Year. We haven't won it yet, but we've been shortlisted. Business advice, our business advice goes from strength to strength. We're one of the few authorities in Derbyshire that still has a business advice supporter, and we've supported 58 firms in the Dales, helping them with their plans to grow and helping them with funding applications. Some examples of the businesses that we've recently helped secure funding are listed there: Parkgate Nursery, Ashbourne, Mount Cook Activity Centre, Middleton by Worksman, and the new Close Farm Butchery at Overhaddon. And they've, overall, not just those 4 businesses, but overall we've attracted or helped attract £1 million worth of funding to support businesses in the Dales. We've been working with a scheme throughout Derbyshire Dales called our Launchpad Business Startup Programme. So this is for startup businesses, and that's been working with 62 clients throughout Derbyshire Dales. All those projects have been delivered with EU funding support. And I think that's me done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorcas. If we do have any questions, we can take them now. Anybody who's got any questions on that presentation? Just one at the back. I can just see the hand. Sorry, do you have a microphone? Can you get close to one of the microphones? Just bear with us.
I have lots of questions, but I like to know where is this helps gone, and where can we get more clear advice about starting up the businesses and help for the other business struggling.
Excuse me. Okay, that's okay. If you want advice on business startups, if you get in touch with our Regeneration and Policy Service, so if you ring our main council switchboard and ask for our business advisor, Heather Bradford, then she can help you.
Okay, do we have any more? No, thank you, Dorcas. Thank you very much. If you don't worry, if you do think of a question, we can take it at the end under the question time section, so don't think that you've missed it. Our second item on the agenda tonight is the Hurst Farm Regeneration Project, and that's going to be put to us tonight by Rob Coggins and Marie Christian Smith. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening. Yes, my name is Marie Schmidt. I'm the Regeneration Manager for Hurst Farm. I've been in post for 5 months, and I'm here to introduce you to the project and to tell you a little bit more about what we've been doing over the last 5 months. So most of you will probably know where Hurst Farm is, but just in case some of you don't, I just created this little slide. So you can see Matlock at the hall, and then the white square, that's where Hurst Farm is. So it sits to the side of Matlock. It's part of Matlock. It's about 600 homes, out of which 65% are socially rented, and the rest are right to buy, so they are privately owned. So this regeneration funding that is paying for my post has been awarded by the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government. It used to be DCL LG, but it's recently changed. And it's funding really to pay for somebody like myself to help the community develop a strategy over 2 years, an in-depth strategy by doing consultation and community engagement for the estate, to kind of a vision really of how the estate can be moved forward or can move forward. And the funding also included a pot of money for Waterloo Housing, who is a partner on this project, and that's kind of working with consultants or studies that are needed for this project. Unfortunately, this funding really is just, at the moment, just for my post, and there is no funding really for immediate improvements, but we're hoping that once we build a strategy, and we've got a funding strategy to go with it, that we will be able to fund kind of more projects on the estate. As I was saying, the project is a partnership, and so it's the Derbyshire Dales District Council together with Friends of Hurst Farm, which is one of the community groups on the estate, and also Waterloo Housing Group, which used to be Dales Housing. And they are the kind of main social landlord on the estate. As part of this project, we set up a partnership project board, and we've got a variety of stakeholders on that project board. So we've got the Castleview Primary School, we've got Derbyshire County Council, we've got CVS, which is the Community Voluntary Service, we've got a lady from Job Centre Plus advising us. So it's made up of, and the social club on Hurst Farm. So really the partnership is made up of the various stakeholders, and they're working together, kind of guiding my role and overseeing the project. So the first impressions coming onto the estate, so after 5 months, I have to say, really, Hurst Farm does have a very strong sense of community. So we've got the Friends of Hurst Farm, who used to be the Residents Association on the estate, and we also have the Social Club. Both of those are actually working towards really engaging with the community and moving Hurst Farm forward. I also found that the residents on the estate seem to have a lot of pride on actually living on the estate. And from Waterloo, we know, from Waterloo Housing, that the average tenancy on the estate is actually 35 years. So, people who live on the estate stay on the estate, and we find that there are many generations of families who now live on the estate. So children stay, and then their children stay. So you find that several, families really, generations live on the estate, and that creates a really strong bond. Yet, even though all of this is so very positive, Hurst Farm does seem to have a negative perception or reputation, in the wider area, which is surprising. But we know that there is deprivation on the estate. So we know that Hurst Farm sits within the 10% of most deprived areas in Britain. We do know that there are children actually on Hurst Farm that go hungry at weekends and holidays. And statistically, somebody living on Hurst Farm is more likely to die 10 years earlier than somebody compared in Matlock as a whole. And also, we know that over 50% of the unemployment claims that are in Matlock are actually based on Hurst Farm. And out of that, the largest group are the over 50s long-term unemployed and single mothers. So really looking at this and the information that I've gained so far, we've not done any real community consultation thus far, but I've spoken to many of the stakeholders and some people in the community, and what is kind of emerging really is a project focus based on these 4 areas. And really they are the built environment, so looking at the infrastructure of the estate, so traffic is an issue, traffic flow, parking. There are issues around open green spaces, dog fouling, and how these spaces are maintained and used. kind of issues around housing. We still have some non-traditional homes on the estate that haven't been refurbished in previous refurbishment programs. So these are the non-traditional kind of concrete prefab houses. There are community assets and engagement that is a focus. So really that is working with the local community groups, engaging them, empowering them, running training sessions and events, or supporting the community group to run training sessions in events to really help some of the residents to maybe step up and gain more confidence, and therefore then be able to get involved more on the project that we're trying to create. Obviously there is an issue around health, so there's an involvement and a need for maybe interventions to do with health. There are economy, so we're thinking really that it would be good to provide more training opportunities and employment opportunities, so supporting local people setting up social enterprises and maybe looking at income levels and how that can be improved. And then also the estate identity. As I was saying, Hurst Farm, even though it has so many good things going for it, does seem to have a bad reputation. So that is something that we would like to address and change if possible. And part of that will be kind of helping the community build a more positive identity and therefore help change perception. So the outcomes that we're hoping for, really, in the first instance, it's understanding as part of this project what the issues actually are. What are the strengths on the estate, what is good about it, and also what are the issues that residents face and that are the reason for deprivation. And then working with the residents to really deliver something different, something innovative that hopefully will leave a lasting legacy for the community. And so that's what we're hoping for, that really the strategic document that we're creating, that it will be a long-term vision, and then it will come with deliverable, workable projects that will have a funding strategy attached to it, so a properly worked out business plan and a funding strategy, so that by the end the community is left with something that they can take and actually run with themselves, and therefore really empowering the community to do it for themselves. And that's really what we're looking for. These are just emerging ideas. We haven't consulted with the community yet, so this is coming now over the next 6 months or so. We'll be engaging with the community in different kind of events and finding out what it is that they would like to see. But things that have come out so far are Hurst Farm has some community assets. It's got the social club and it's got the community centre, but they are not at this moment sufficient. The community centre, for example, is actually it's a really lovely space, and the community have done a lot of work improving the space, and it's a real asset. However, it is quite a small space, and they've got a youth club, for example, which the community run, and they get over 40 children every week, which is great, but they don't really have the space in the community centre, for example. So working with the social club and the community centre, supporting them so that perhaps we can find a better option, and also helping the social club improve the building is one of the ideas that we have. The Friends of Hurst Farm have secured funding to set up a community cafe, and this is quite an exciting project. It's taking food from supermarkets that is left over and is cooking healthy meals, which then residents in the community can come and eat, and then they can pay for it, or if they can't afford it, they don't pay. But basically creating a bit of a community hub, an opportunity for people to come and engage and link up with other residents. And we want to support that, maybe build a community garden project to go with it, maybe have some training around through the county council. They might be able to offer some free training around cooking and gardening. And we also want to set up some training around digital hub really, with the universal credit coming up, there will be a real need for residents to be able to access the internet and computers. So this is something that we are working with the Friends of Hurst Farm to try and set up some kind of resource on the estate, and maybe training up local people to become digital champions, and thereby kind of help and facilitate this upskilling for other residents. We're looking at the remaining non-traditional homes. So we've got about 44, I think, still on the estate, which are all in private ownership. So those are homes that are quite drafty and usually occupied by elderly residents now. So kind of finding a way forward for them. So we are looking at different models of what might be possible. We're working with the primary school, seeing if there are ways we can assist as part of this regeneration project in the plans that they have. Obviously, like I said, looking at the infrastructure, looking at social enterprises, looking at using the green spaces around the estate. So Hurst Farm is surrounded like a C shape by this really lovely woodland, which actually could be used for something like forest school. And I don't know if that's something you've come across before, but it's a way of engaging young people and adults in learning kind of foresty skills, and it's confident building, resilience building, and a way of bringing people out into nature and engaging with the local environment. So that is something we would like to set up. And also improving the footpaths around the estate. But I was saying, these are all ideas that we have at the moment. It really depends on what the community would like, and then also the funding that we can find to facilitate all of this. Oh, and that's it. There was a slide, meant to be a slide to say thank you, but yes. So this is my presentation. Are there any questions?
Yeah, thank you very much for that very detailed presentation tonight. Thank you indeed.
Yes.
We'll have one at the back there.
Yes, just one question. If it's a 10% area deprivation, I believe Derbyshire County Council have got a community deprivation grant, and I think it ends in the summer. They've got a huge pot. Has it gone? All gone. Although they had 900 and something thousand annual class. That was only 2 weeks ago, because I asked about it. It all sounds wonderful. Having taught at the local school, St Joseph's, I would have thought a priority was probably ensuring young mothers could get out to work. So I would have thought it was very vital that children had good nurseries. It's a very exciting project.
Thank you. Yep. Do I? Against you.
Yeah. So, Sue, did you want to come in?
Well, only to say that there was this amount of money, quite a substantial amount of money, 2.something million, to be spent in deprived areas, of which Hurst Farm, and not just Hurst Farm, but it's actually include parts of Frank Road and Car Road all around there. There was an amount of money, and it was 23,000, I think, allocated to Matlock, but it's all been spent. I haven't got any of it left, and I'm not going to get any. There is some money left, but that's only for the areas that haven't spent the money as at present. So I can't tap into that. No, in the whole of Derbyshire there is money left. That's probably where this 900,000 come from. But that's allocated to different areas of the county. There isn't any. There has to be
I'll bring you in now.
I was very interested to see on the scheme of things that digital champions were mentioned. Now, 5 years or 4 years ago, I signed up as a digital champion, and initially I got 1 or 2 referrals, and then it's all gone quiet, and I can't see any grading of information about digital champions coming my way, and I'd like to know where you've got the digital champions from now. Thank you.
Right. I wasn't aware that there was a previous scheme, so it would be very interesting to talk to you and find out who was running that and
Derbyshire County Council.
Okay. Well, I will investigate, because obviously if there are people like yourself already trained up, it would be great to bring you into the project and give you an opportunity to use your to support. Yes, it's something that we looked at the need that seems to be there and thought that might be a good project to set up. So it's something that's come out of conversations that I've had. So no, thank you very much for bringing it to my attention that there was something already that we might be able to link into.
Yeah, we've got the gentleman at the back there.
I have a problem housing, hotel housing. So I'd like to know what is their plan, what they're going to do for us, because there's housing, they've not been clear with me. So we've got problems with them, and we don't want any more problems with them. Another one, project funding, is it only one source we have to look for project funding? There's only one source we have to look for. Or is there another different source we can look for instead of waiting to hear the people?
Yes, well, to your first point, Waterloo Housing, obviously I can't comment on any issues you might have with Waterloo themselves, but I can definitely point you in the direction of the person you could speak to. In terms of funding, yes, I mean, at the moment this funding is really there to support the work that I do. However, there are different funding pots out there that we're hoping to look into. So we'll definitely, it's already something we've started looking at. So it won't be just at the end of the 2 years. So we'll kind of continuously looking at different funding pots that are out there. Thank you.
Do we have any more? Oh, Councillor Slack.
Over the years, the right to buy, some of these big countries have left behind. Over the years, the right to buy has meant a lot of prefabricated buildings are still on the Hurst farm, because when Dale's housing improved, the others bricked them all up and they look much better. Is there any funding to help these people, because they are having to pay mortgages, obviously? Is there any funding to help them people to improve their homes?
Well, we haven't got any funding at the moment, but that's what we're looking into. We're looking into seeing what it is that we could offer those residents and how we could help them.
Yeah, they seem to be left behind while the others have been improved.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, we all done? Right. Thank you very much again for that presentation. Thank you indeed. We now move on to the Derbyshire Fire Authority. We have the area manager, Phil Mitchell, who's going to talk to us tonight about the review of the duty system at day staffing stations, which is Matlock and Glossop. So over to Phil. Thank you.
Hello everybody. Can you hear me okay? As I always introduce myself, I'm Phil Mitchell, but obviously a bit more hair, not that one. And I'm area manager with Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Service. And as it clearly states on the board, my project for the service at the moment is to review the duty systems at day staffing stations, which is at Glossop and Matlock. And it gives me great pleasure to talk to you tonight about that. Now, just a bit of background before I start. The fire service has what we call a national framework document. And in that document, it says that each fire and rescue service must produce an IRMP, which is an integrated risk management plan. And what that looks at is looking at resources in the county and matching that to risk in the county. Now, on top of that, we also have to save £1.6 million by 2021, or the life of the IRMP. Now, in the IRMP as well, we look at all the risk, as I've said, but equally, we look at 5 key areas. So that's reviewing layers of assurance, reviewing staffing, which is that project there. We review collaboration, of course, with the Police and Crime Act 2017. You might have seen the fantastic police and fire headquarters at Ripley. Community safety we engage with, things like EFI, emergency first responding, which we had a trial at Matlock, and we also look at service improvement ideas, and that's ongoing. So that's a little bit of background to that. Now, what we do is, out of the IRMP, we meet with the Fire Authority, of which Councillor Burfoot's in the room tonight. She's on the Fire Authority, and we work through the different ideas and the different ways of working that we've got. I've got the staff in Glossop and Matlock, and they've been identified and given the okay by the Fire Authority that we look at these stations and how we staff them. So from the decision in September, which was to the Fire Authority, which basically said, should we stay the same or should we explore other duty systems? So from that time, I've been tasked and I've engaged with the watchers from Glossop and Matlock. I've had many, many meetings with trade unions, etc. We've met with councillors at both areas. We've researched various duty systems and gathered that information and analysed it. And when I say various, that's from the length and breadth of the country, to see if there's any ideas out there that Derbyshire hasn't thought of itself. We've also worked with a consultancy company that has specialisms in and around the fire service. So we've looked at things like self-rostering, which I'll come on to later, that one or two fire services in the country are dealing with. So from that, we've brought a number of duty system models which have been presented to the Fire Authority for their consideration. Now, also what we looked at was this model here, which is a resilience model enabler. So, for example, if you go to the top where it's got high costs and high resilience, you'd be thinking about a fire station such as Kingsway in Derby that's staffed 24/7, Buxton staffed 24/7, things like that. Low cost, lower resilience is stations like Clown, which are what we call on-call. So that's firefighters with a pager that respond from either their homes or places of work. So just to give you an idea there of Matlock and Glossop, as you can see, and that's the average number of mobilisations by hour. So you can see that the majority of incidents that we have in Glossop and Matlock are primarily during the day. And obviously that isn't the rule, but that is just when we've collated all the information together over the last 5 years, that's where we see our incidents happening and the times of day. Now, what I generally do is explain every one of these 19 shift patterns that I managed to get from around the country. I'm not obviously going to do that today because Ros has given me a strict time frame to adhere to. So I'll just at the bottom, see bottom left, you've got 224 without on-call. So that would be a station like Ascot Drive or Chesterfield. So that's staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 4 watchers of firefighters, but they don't have an on-call unit attached to it. Whereas, for example, 224 with an on-call unit, slightly to the right of it, that would be like Buxton. So Buxton, again, staffed 24/7, 4 watchers of 7, but they have what we call an on-call unit as well. So they respond from home with pagers at night time to respond to incidents. So I'll get rid of some of them that I can be questioned on later, and we'll come to the last two. So at Matlock and Glossop at the moment, I don't know if you're aware of how they're staffed, but basically the firefighters are there during the day. So they're always there during the day. Then they go to the houses provided by the service at night, or that some of them live off station, but they have to live within 5 minutes of the station, and they then respond via pager to any incidents that we have. So that's the current system. And what we're looking at, and it went to Fire Authority to discuss this and get approval for, is a Monday to Friday system. So that's where firefighters would be there Monday to Friday during the day, and then what we call on-call at night. And as I've showed you earlier on, the majority of our calls are during the day, or the 9-day fortnight, or we've tweaked that slightly to it being a Monday to Friday system with weekend resilience. And that might look like some of the whole-time firefighters that are there during the day, then provide additional weekend cover to assist the on-call. So we aren't taking any fire engines away from Glossop or Matlock. You currently have 2 available during the day, you have 2 available at night. Under those 2 shift patterns, you will still have 2 at the day, 2 at the night, but they're just staffed differently. So just to put you onto some operational costs there, I don't know if you can see that at the back, but we've got the current model right over on the left-hand side, and right across to the 24/7 with on-call, 224 with on-call right at the other side. So you can see that's an expensive option. What you've got there on the left-hand side with day staffing houses current model, that doesn't include the current on-call provision that is at Glossop and Matlock. But as I say, I can answer any questions on that either tonight or at another time. I'll give my details to Ros. So when we were talking with the Fire Authority, and we've got HMICFRS, that's Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabularies and Fire and Rescue Services, some of the feedback that we're getting from that department is that any fire stations that do under 400 calls a year, why aren't you making them completely on call? Because that's the cheapest way of staffing a fire station. Now, my Chief Fire Officer doesn't want to go completely to that. So he wants some resilience during the day when the majority of our calls are. So, but just to give you an example here, these are Matlock and Glossop there at 208, 220. You can see, for example, Hena, that's a completely on-call unit, respond via pages from home address or work. They currently do 179 calls per year. So you can see how close the call ratios are. Ripley, 167 calls a year. Bolsover, 152 calls a year. So that's just to give you a flavour of the additional resilience that you've currently got at Glossop and Matlock. So the next steps of the project plan, I submitted my report in December, which basically asked the Fire Authority to continue to commit to their IRMP, which was to review the duty systems at Glossop and Matlock, and for them to allow us to go out and consult using, if you live in Glossop and Matlock area, you should have received one of these through the post, or you should be getting one certainly this week. And there are 3 options in that consultation, and the Fire and Rescue Service has got a preferred option, which is the Monday to Friday with the additional weekend resilience. Now we're going to still out for consultation now till the 16th of February, and you'll see down this list I've put up on the board there. Then we've got continued information exchange. We've got to then submit the consultation report on the 22nd of March into the Fire Authority. So that's all the comments that you put on this information we'll look at and take into consideration, and then we'll commence requirements of the authority members post-Fire Authority. Now, what that means is that if the Fire Authority say, yes, we want you to implement the Monday to Friday with resilience, then we would be looking to serve notice on the houses at Matlock and Glossop. But this, I must bring to your attention, is a 3-year implementation. So we're not going to change the duty system overnight. It's an implementation plan that we will adhere to. So just to summarise, I think I'm good for time, Ros. We've looked at resilience versus cost. I've given you a very whistle-stop tour of the 19 shift patterns that I've looked into, and then we've ended up with the potential recommendations, which is the Monday to Friday and the Monday to Friday with resilience. We've looked at a bit of example data with the number of fire calls that I showed you for on-call stations and Glossop and Matlock, and we've looked at the costings as well. I've shown you the list of the next steps that we're looking to do with the Fire Authority after the consultation. So that's really where we currently are with the consultation process regarding the Fire Authority and the changing of shifts at Glossop and Matlock. I realise there may be many questions, and I'm happy to take them now. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for explaining that, making it a bit more clearer. Anybody from Matlock and surrounding areas that's feeling the fallout and having it back. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Okay, take that
I
one
wonder
then.
if you could explain why you're getting rid of the houses if you are actually staffing during the daytime.
Yeah, the potential shift pattern that we're looking at, subject to the Fire Authority approval, we won't need to have the houses at Glossop and Matlock. The firefighters will be there during the day, like, for example, at Buxton during the day. So the firefighters will be there. They won't need to live in the houses.
Where will they be during the 24 hours then? Will they be miles away or?
No, they have within 5 minutes to respond to the station.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
The gentleman at the back, can you just try the microphone again, just at the back there, if you would, because it makes it a lot easier for Jim down here, if you could.
Matlock Station, is it going to stay or is it going to go?
No, it'll stay. The station will still be there.
For how long?
Yes, in Matlock. With
For how long? How long is it going to stay? Forever or a couple of years after change?
No. We have no plans to close Matlock Fire Station whatsoever. In fact, depending with the Police and Crime Act, as I alluded to earlier, we potentially could be looking to do something with the station to bring the police on board and potentially EMAS on board.
And also, if we need to have for volunteering, I can help for the fire station to stay there. You can go there for a couple hours a day.
Thank you. It's okay. Thank you. I got that.
Thank you then. We've got Councillor Martin Burford.
Yes, I'd like to read an email that I got today from a Matlock resident who couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately. He says, regarding the proposals for changing the duty systems at Matlock and Glossop, I wish to object in the strongest possible terms to any changes. These changes are a result of government underfunding and cuts. They will increase the response times no matter what the Chief Fire Officer says. Just ask the FBU and they will back this up. This consultation document is terribly flawed, as it gives no option other than to choose between cuts of one type or another, all of which will result in a worse service. Therefore, if you want a truthful and honest consultation document, then go back and redesign the questions to give a no change option, which would be less than the whitewash your consultation actually is. So to summarise, my stance is no change, go back to the government to obtain the correct funding to continue the level of cover and duty systems as they are now. And if I could ask my own question as well, are you confident that you can recruit and retain sufficient retained or on-call firefighters in the new system that you're proposing, given the problem in recruiting those officers now, as they're only very much part-time?
Thank you for your question. In regard to the first bit, I'd recommend that documentation that you've got is fed into the consultation. Regarding your own question, it's a 3-year implementation plan. So we've got 3 years to increase the establishment at Glossop and Matlock to provide that additional resilience in the times that it's not staffed by full-time firefighters.
I think we had Councillor Pauly. Did you put your hand up? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Councillor Burford actually asked the question I was going to ask.
Okay, then that's fine. Jeff.
Yeah. I'd better do it properly.
Yeah, get wired up. Are you ready?
That's it, I'm wired up. Yeah, one of the things you haven't quite answered is the response time. And I think that is the most important thing. Is it going to remain the same as it is now? I think that's the important point.
Thank you for your question. During the day, the firefighters are there currently, and under the new proposals, the firefighters will be there during the day. At night, they go either back to they go back to the houses, or they live close by, within 5 minutes. That's what we insist. And that will be the same under the new proposals, that the on-call firefighters have the pager. They have to be within 5 minutes of the station. So you're still getting a 5-minute response time at night, as you currently do now. Even though the firefighters live at the houses, they're not chained to the houses. They are allowed to go into Glossop, Matlock, etc. So you should see no difference in response times during the day or at night.
What's going to happen to the 12 houses in Turnpike Close?
Thank you for your question, sir. That's going to be a separate project subject to the outcomes of the Fire Authority meeting in March. So if the go-ahead is given that we change the staffing system, so then we'll set up a separate project which will look at the development or not of the site, and as I say, that could include a new police fire station at Turnpike Close. But that's not a project as yet, because we're still out for consultation and waiting the decision by the Fire Authority.
Thank you.
Do we have any more? No? Have you all done? Just make sure everybody has finished, because Phil is going to leave us straight away now, I think.
Well, I'll hang around for 10 minutes.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Right, so if you do think of one, please indicate a little bit later on. Okay, thank you very much. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for that. We now go on to Karen, who's going to talk to us about the spending proposals for 2018/19. So over to Karen. Thank you very much.
Good evening. So I'd like to talk to you about the council spending proposals.
Oh, you switch it on.
Sorry. This slide shows the amount of finance that we get from the government. So the first slide shows the settlement funding assessment, and that's made up of our main grant that we call the revenue support grant, and the baseline business rate that the government say that we can keep. And you can see from that that for 2018-19 we're going to have a reduction of 11% in that grant. Now that was expected, because some years ago the government gave us a 4-year funding deal. So although it's 11% cut, we were aware it was coming, and we have planned for it to some extent in our medium-term commitment plan. The line below shows our spending power. This is made up of the settlement funding assessment, so business rates and revenue support grants, and also it comprises grants like new homes bonus, and what the government think we can collect in council tax. Now for 2018-19, when we've looked at the figures in depth, we can see that the government have assumed that we're going to put our council tax up by 2.99%. But despite that, we've still got an overall reduction of 4.2% in our spending power. So these are government figures, so they're clear that we can spend less than we used to in real terms. This slide shows you how the settlement funding assessment has reduced over the years. We used to get £3.8 million in 2013-14, and that's due to go down to 1.2 million in 2019-20. So significant cuts over the years. The next slide, it sets out how much of the spending power is funded by council tax. So in effect, how much you pay rather than the government. So of the spending power, back in 2015-16, 58% of our council tax, our spending power was funded by council tax. Now, as part of the government's austerity measures, that's reducing over the years. The government funding is reducing over the years, so the amount that has to be funded by the council tax is increasing. But there's a stark contrast between how urban areas are treated and how rural areas are treated. And you can see that over the 4 years, the proportion funded by the council tax in a rural area changes from 58% 71%. So residents are funding more spending. In an urban area, by contrast, the percentage has gone up from 45% to 57%, significantly less. Now we think it's unfair that council taxpayers in rural areas should have to pay a lot more than those in urban areas, where often it costs a lot more to provide services in a rural area because of large distances, and we don't get the same economies of scale. So we have written to the government to tell them that we think it's unfair and to ask them if they can reconsider the way that they allocate grants. So I thought you might like to see how we get income, how we source income from our services if we included our own fees and charges in the mix. So this slide shows the spending power we had before, government grants, business rates and council tax, but adds to it our own fees and charges. And you can see that our own fees and charges actually make up more than half the funding. And they amount to about £10 million a year. The biggest elements of the fees and charges are car parking and leisure centres. I also thought you might like to know where the money goes. And it goes on things like waste collections, leisure services, leisure centres and so on. And this slide shows it as a pie chart. So our biggest areas of spend, as you'd expect, perhaps include waste, clean and green, keeping the streets clean, doing our parks, and sport and arts. This slide shows our capital spending. So the previous slide was annual revenue spending. This one shows our 5-year capital programme. So capital spending is investment in new building, vehicles and so on. So as you might expect, given it's our top priority, we spend most of our capital programme on affordable housing. Over the next 5 years, we plan to spend over £6 million on that. Most of that's funded by contributions from developers that come Section 106 grants and also from capital receipts. So we're working hard to make efficiency savings. We're looking at all services, trying to provide a good level of service that you need within the resources we've got. But to do that, and continue to do that, we think we're proposing an increase of 2.99% in the council tax for 2018-19. And that works out about 11 pence a week for a Band D property. This slide shows it for the other bands. So if your property's a Band A property, the increase is about 8 pence a week, just under £4 a year. And if you're in a Band H property, it's just under £12 a year or 23 pence a week. So to achieve a balanced budget over the coming years, because the grant reductions go on beyond 18-19, we've set a corporate savings target to achieve £1 million over the next 3 years. And that's quite a tough challenge, because that's 10% of our net revenue spending. We've already made a lot of savings, over £1 million in recent years, so it gets harder and harder to make more. We're in the process of updating our efficiency plan to show how we plan to achieve those savings. But we have had one bit of good news recently, and that's that we've been told that we're going to be part of a Derbyshire business rates pilot, looking at changes to the business rate system, and we're hopeful that that might bring us some additional funding. So we hope that you agree that 2.99% is a reasonable amount of funding to deliver the services that you tell us you need. As it says there, the presentation will be on the council's website for you to view. Councillors are going to meet on the 5th of March to consider the proposed increase. And if you want to give us your feedback on the proposals, you can use the forms on your chairs, or you could email me at finance@Derbyshire. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Karen. Do we have any questions for Karen at the moment? Please.
Can you tell me, the Rural Services Delivery Grant, has that increased? And if so, how much by and what is it used for?
£322,000 for this current financial year.
Right.
It was due to reduce for 2018-19 by about £50,000, I think, but the government in their settlement have now brought it back up to the same level for next year. It's not used for any specific purpose, it's just put into the pot to fund the general services of the council.
Okay. How can I just ask another question? Obviously, from a parish council point of view, I realise that all funding has stopped parish councils now. Is there any plan to reinstate any funding to parish councils?
I think you're referring to the council tax support that used to be passed on, that we phased out some years ago. The reason we phased that out was that we could no longer tell how much the government were awarding to us for us to pass on. In reality, for 2018-19, we're not receiving any revenue support grant for next year. So the grant that used to be there that we shared has now gone anyway. And the council does provide support to parish councils in other means. We still have things like the reimbursable scheme where we help with cemeteries and burial grounds and so on.
Thank you.
Do we have any more? No? Anyone? Okay, thank you very much, Karen. We're now going on to the community safety update, and this is going to be presented by another Karen, that's Karen Cooper, and she's got with her PC Squires and PCSO Leicester. Thank you very much, ladies.
Hello, I'm Karen Cooper, I'm Community Safety Officer for Derbyshire Dales. I'm based here in Derbyshire Dales District Council and I cover the whole of Derbyshire Dales. This is PC Squires, who is based with Worksworth Safe Neighbourhood Team, and PCSO Leicester, who's from Darley Dales Safe Neighbourhood Team. Although they're attached to those specific Safe Neighbourhood teams, they do very often cover the whole of what we would class as a central area and can be found anywhere within that locality. Okay, in 1998 the government decided that crime could not be solved on its own by the police and created community safety partnerships. 20 years later, community safety partnerships are very different than what they were when they first started. Look at everything, all different types of crime and social behaviour, work together on specific problems, specific cases, as well as projects, and trying to improve communities and engage with members. The Anti-Social Behaviour Act 2014 changed the way that partnerships work, and the majority of the funding that we spend within the Community Safety Partnership is grant funding that we receive from the Police and Crime Commissioner. Derbyshire Dales has the lowest rates of calls for service for antisocial behaviour and crime within the county at present. We're currently lower than we were this time last year, unlike some of the other areas of the county and the county as a whole. So we do have a lot to celebrate, a lot to keep good, but we also need to make sure that we carry that through, and with your help, hopefully we can continue to do that. Okay, moving on to some of the projects we do. Cybercrime and online safety is a new emerging threat area, something that we've been focusing on for the last couple of years, and just last week in this building, as you can see yourselves, we delivered a cyber safety and online course for over 50 people to look at what our young people are up to on the internet. And I think Sue and Pat would agree with me, it was very educational, and there was a lot of things that we didn't understand and still don't understand that they are currently doing.
Hello, I'm Pat Squires, like I say, I'm based at Matlock Fire Station on the Safe Neighbourhood team. We work closely in partnership with community safety teams as well. December last year we held an event at Meadowview Centre, which is next to the Whitworth Hospital, and it was for the elderly and engaging with the elderly and younger people to break down barriers. We did an event for crime prevention, so we invited people that have been victims of crime, and also it was open to members of the public just to drop in. It was a 4-hour event from 10 o'clock till 2. other agencies there, such as Citizens Advice, the bank came along, and we had the Vulnerable Adults Unit there as well, so people asked questions. We put a buffet on, we had a buffet lunch, teas and coffees, cake and etc. The children from Highfield schools invited to engage with the elderly and have conversations to break down barriers. We also had children from Darlydale Infants and Junior School, they came along and sang carols and had some entertainment on as well. To do with the crime prevention, we handed out the light bulbs with the switches on so that when it goes dark it looks like somebody's in. Timers, so could plug things in such as radios, televisions, and also lamps. For crime prevention, we handed out purse chains, so obviously when people are out shopping to get the purse dip and everything, so we handed those out. We also handed out, at the moment there's a thing going around where if people have got bank cards in the pocket, there's an app that can be downloaded where the bank cards can be scanned and then money can be taken or used online. And we have wallets over at the police station that Karen's kindly paid for, where you can put your card into the wallet and it protects your card so that it can't be scanned because people downloading apps. So I was explaining to people how they was used as well. We also handed out leaflets to do what it's called a phone box leaflet with all useful telephone numbers on, such as ambulance, 101 numbers, 111 numbers, and all useful handy numbers that people can use.
So behind closed doors is another initiative that we've run, and I think many people in this room actually came and viewed. There's domestic violence awareness raising session, and it was around raising awareness of coercive behaviour and how those situations and how people's responses can make one awful amount of a difference. So,
hi, my name's PCSO Lester. I'm based at Matlock as well. And also
speak into the microphone so we can hear, please.
And it's I'm basically based at Matlock. I cover Darlydale's my main area. Over the last 14 years, we're based on Derbyshire Dales. We've set up projects with the schools, mainly doing road safety weeks with the schools. So I travel around all the schools in the rural areas, promoting road safety. And one thing that was highlighted is a lot of the parents don't wear seat belts when taking the children to school, and a lot of the parents in the rural areas don't even think about putting the children in child seats or getting them to wear their seat belts while they go to school. So we do a road safety week where we educate the children for the whole week about safety in using seat belts, how to behave in cars, etc. And at the end of the week, we basically set up a speed watch where the children are using the speed gun systems. This year we've actually got the highlighting signs as well, which flash up and tell the cars what speed they're doing. The kids basically did a survey for us. They clocked who was not wearing the seat belts, who was using the mobile phones while they were driving, and also what sort of speeds the cars were doing, and how many cars were coming past their school. It also highlighted to the drivers, when they see a child holding a speed gun, it clicks another thing as well. It makes them aware the reason why they should be doing that speed near a school. Why should it be 20 or 30 miles per hour? Some of the speeds what we were getting coming past the school, we were looking at 40 miles plus, and they were educated about the fact that they should be speeding near schools. Also, another of the community projects we did was the Community Wonder, which has now gone over the Derbyshire Dales, first and originally started off in Wirksworth. This is engaging with the infant school children, educating them about being a good citizen in the community and doing a sticker award scheme for them. So basically as they do things like helping in the community, getting involved in community events, being a good citizen, they earn stickers over the year, and at the end of the year they get presented by the mayor or by the council with a certificate to say that they've achieved the award as a good citizen. We give out around about 300 certificates a year for children up to the age of 8-9 years old before they go on to primary school.
Another campaign that we work on, especially with the police and our other partners from the council, licensing, environmental health, other departments with the police, is the Intoxicating campaign. This is a campaign that was actually born in the Peats and Dales a few years back. has now been taken over Derbyshire nationally, thanks to Mr Dinser, and looks around not selling to drunks, looking at drugs and looking at the vulnerabilities that people sometimes expose themselves to once they've had a few too many, and trying to educate people around those factors and trying to keep people safe when they're out in the nighttime economy. Okay, moving on to the exciting bit. Derbyshire Dales District Council have just invested £100,000 in new CCTV. We have state-of-the-art CCTV all across the district. The system isn't currently fully commissioned yet. We've got a few tweaking exercises to carry out. We've got 20 camera sites, so to speak, across the district, which are detailed below. We've called them camera sites because a lot of our cameras have more than one camera in them nowadays. Okay, so just pulling you back completely, these are a couple of images from our old camera systems. This is a system that we put in just before 2007-ish time. If you look carefully at the buzz, you'll realise that you can't actually read the information that the buzz is displaying as to where it's going. And also, if you look at the car, you've got absolutely no chance of reading the number plate whatsoever. Now, disappointingly, as I switch to this next slide, I'm not allowed to show you any number plates under data protection rules anymore. But as you can see from this is our 360-degree cameras. So you've got a 360-degree view of Crown Square and Matlock Bus Station, which is where these two happen to be sited. Those cameras are static in those positions, so we've always got that view. What we found with the old system very often was, because it was a PTZ, a pan, tilt and zoom camera, it moved round, it went in circles, it zoomed in for the non-techie folks like me. Okay? When it was doing that, you could guarantee that there was a crash over here and the camera was looking over here, or there was an incident here and the camera was here. It was guaranteed every time. So hopefully we've come past that with some of these cameras, because not only have we got 360, we've also got the capabilities to zoom in, look at registrations and look more in-depth things as they go on. Moving on, our next cameras. Now I have some issues with these cameras, as many of you will recognise the locations. We've got bends and straight roads. And this is because of the 180-degree viewing facility. They go round in a bend, so it creates a bend. But it's 4 cameras knitting the image together. But as you can see, it's a nice, clear image giving you an overview of what's happening in that area at any one point in time. And the final image, this just shows you a couple of the PTZs. So this is just showing you how we can zoom in, how we can look at number plates, how we can look to identify people. Our camera system isn't monitored. It is done on a review basis, so if we have an incident, a call for service, we will review and see what we can do. We're in the process of talking to the Safer Neighbourhood team, such as Sue, Pat, around what is in those areas where the cameras are, about looking at setting the tours up, so we're viewing the key locations at the right times, so we can hopefully gain the right information to hopefully help the police, help ourselves to try and combat some crime disorder that's happening across the district. Okay, just a few good news stories to date. So, on behalf of the council, we use the CCTV to work at some enforcement with the peddlers over Matlock Bath Illuminations. We're in the process of trying to reclaim just under £1,000 for damage to a bollard in Worksworth, and we're investigating with the police some damage to the bus station doors in Matlock, which hopefully we can see some money coming back to ourselves there for the damage that we've had to shell out for. In terms of the public, if you're as a member of the public, you can apply under a subject access request for any footage of yourselves if you know you're in Matlock at certain times or you know something's occurred. It's a very complicated request process, but one gentleman did apply to us because his car had been used in a crime somewhere else and he needed to prove he was in Matlock. So using the cameras, we could manage to pinpoint him in Matlock and give him a copy of that image, which he's been able to use successfully to get himself off what he was accused of somewhere. And then in terms of the police, requests are changing on a daily basis. We're looking at shoplifters, purse thefts, bag thefts, burglaries, road traffic collisions, boy races, a whole host of things with them. Picture, as I say, is changing almost daily, and if anybody does want any more information on CCTV or does require access to any footage in the future, it's CCTV at Derbyshire Dales, and we'll do our best to deal with your inquiry as best as we can. And just finally, a shameless plug for the Safer Derbyshire Dales Facebook page. If you are on Facebook and you don't follow us, please feel free to join us, have a look at what we're up to, have a look at some of the partnership initiatives, partnership activity, and help with some of our crimes and most wanted that are slowly going through as well. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, ladies, for that. Thank you. Do we have any questions for the ladies down here at the moment? Yes. One from the panels and up, at the back there.
See, you've got on there about boy racers. Well, I live at Tansley, and on Sunday night, I was upstairs, and I heard these boy racers coming through the village. They was coming right on the cliff, and I could hear them roaring. I counted 10 cars, all racing. One of them came round the Royal Oak corner. You know where the Royal Oak is at Tansley? Gurkha Inn now, if you like. And another one came round and overtook him there. I'm sorry to say, but if anything had been pulling out to the bottom of the village, they would never have survived the crash. Is there anything you can do? It's not just Sunday night, Thursday night they were at it as well.
Thank you very much for your comments. What I would urge is if you do see that in the future, please do bring the police.
We have done.
We can only deal with what we know is going on. We've got a number of ongoing inquiries at the moment around boy racers. We can't really talk too much about at this moment in time, but we are looking to work in partnership with the police, with ourselves, and use the tools and powers we've got where we can. But please do ring us and please do tell us about what's happening in the district.
Last year, I know there were 5 people rang the police about this incident.
Okay, another one from Townsend. Sorry, Mrs. Ring.
Yes. Should we want to get in touch with you, how would we get in touch with you? And do you rotate around the villages? I'm from Tansley as well. We don't see an awful lot of anybody to do with the police in my
What village?
Tansley.
It's PCSO Carl Millward and PC Gary Ferguson that are your local. We all have separate areas, such as I'm from First Matlock Bath and Worksworth, but your 2 police officers for your area is PCSO Millward and PC Gary Ferguson. If when we've finished, I'll come and get your details, and they're back on duty at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I can get them to contact you if you wish. That's not a problem.
Yeah, that's be great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Just in terms of making contact with ourselves, if you want the police and it's an emergency and you need a police officer there, it is 999. If you want to speak to your local safe neighbourhood officer or an officer about something else, it's 101 and they will call you back when they're on duty. In terms of community safety, you can reach me through the District Council switchboard, or you can email me, and I'm happy to give my email address to any of you at the end. Thank you.
That's one more question.
Can I just bring this gentleman in here because he indicated first? Thank you.
I welcome the new form of cameras. They're pretty good, but how well do they work at night? Will they still get a clear image?
Right, I'm going to sound really technical now. They've got what we call dark fighter technology within them, so they don't change to black and white during the evening, which the previous cameras did. They do remain in full colour, and we do have a really good image at night. We're having a bit of issues in some places with backlash from street lighting, but we're currently working with our partners at the county to try and reduce that and try and make the images better. But I would say they're a very good quality image, far better than what we've had previously.
My question is just about about the location of the cameras, where there's a lot of bars along Dale Road. Have you got any cameras in those positions? In Matlock and Dale Road, where there's the cluster of bars all quite close together, is there anything that's overlooking the entrances to those bars?
We don't necessarily have anything overlooking specific premises, because that wouldn't necessarily be our responsibility. We're looking at public spaces in general.
Yeah, that's where a lot of the crime is.
What we're looking at. We do have some cameras on Dale Road. Exactly whether they're picking up the areas you want, I don't know. In terms of siting the cameras, we went through a very complicated process with partners within the council, within the police and from the county, around looking at the risk and threat, where the problems were, where the cameras have been most useful, and that's how they've arrived at the locations they have at the moment.
We've got the gentleman at the back there. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Switch it on.
Just press the button. Press the button. That's it.
Down the speed camera. I don't feel comfortable when I go there because the signs are not clear and roads are not safe. We're talking about safety, but I just recently paid so much money for speed camera. It was night time, raining, and I don't know what I need to do. They put the sign after the camera. Before the camera, there's no clear sign. You know, I feel very terrible, and the police forced me. I had to do the course, and after that course, I damaged myself because of that course. I didn't learn nothing.
So it's just like money-making system. It's not safety system.
Okay, in terms of the speed cameras, the actual cameras aren't from us, they're from the Road Safety Camera Partnership, which is another consortium, but we will feed your concerns back and over the locations of the signage and see what they can review.
Do you have any? Oh, one more gentleman at the back there.
This is the first time I've been to a meeting like this, so maybe I'm asking questions which is not, which you cannot answer here. So maybe I must ask it someplace else, but it's in connection with noise. And as you call it, antisocial behavior. It's been going on for years now, not months or days. And it's in connection with the bars and the pubs in Derbyshire. So we phoned the police several times. They just do nothing. They don't even come out and sort out the things. There's been attacks with knives. There's been broken windows, sort of nearly every weekend. There's complaints about people making noises until 3-4 o'clock in the morning. There's fights in the park on the opposite side, all because of these pubs. What must one do? How will we get reaction? Because it's unbearable at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Obviously, I can't comment on Pacific operations or Pacific places. We are aware of the locations that you're on about. Also in the room is Inspector Johnson, PC Timpley and Tim Broad, who's our Head of Regulatory Services. We are working in partnership with them and with the police. Unfortunately, antisocial behaviour is a realm and a raft on its own, and unfortunately one size never fits all, and it isn't a one call fixes it. So all I can stress is please continue to report to us, to the police, to the most appropriate agency, and we will continue to talk and we will continue to try and work in partnership to try and reduce those issues. I don't know if you guys want to add anything else?
Thanks, Karen. As Karen said, I'm Tim Broad. I'm Head of Regulatory Services here at the Council, which means I look after licensing issues for the Council and environmental health, who deal with noise complaints. We are working currently with our colleagues in the police to look at what's going on Dell Road and come up with a way of investigating that in the most effective way that we can. As Karen said, it's not appropriate in a public meeting to say exactly what it is we're going to do, but please be assured that we are going to do something and we're going to do it pretty quick.
May I answer on that? We've had those words 3 years ago, the same exactly what you've said now. Nothing has been done until now. So I would appreciate it if you do something. And we are going to make sure that something happens there, because it can't carry on like this. It's big problems there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Some years ago, I'm Vice Chairman of the Matlock Parish Council. Some years ago, we had a meeting every quarter of the Safety Neighbourhood team. It gradually disappeared, and then one day we were told it would be at Matlock Police Station at such and such a time. When we turned up, the door was locked, and we waited for 20 minutes before somebody decided to open the door and let us in for the meeting. As the meetings didn't seem to help very much, most of us stopped going. I wonder if you have any plans to revive a suitable and effective Safe Neighbourhood team. That's number one. Number two is Matlock Parish Council every 2 months has a section on the agenda for the police. Report from the police. We haven't had a police presence for round about 3 to 4 years. Can you rectify that, please?
Okay, well, thank you very much for your question. In terms of the Safer Neighbourhood team meetings, I can't comment per se. Within the Derbyshire Dales, we're about to get a new inspector, Inspector Darren Abbott, who's due to start imminently. So potentially things could change around then. But one of the main reasons for those meetings folding, not continuing, is all to do with staffing changes, budget cuts and pressures of everybody across the board. And the police generally finding that those meetings weren't actually that productive in terms of their priorities and in terms of pushing things forward. In terms of Matlock Bath Parish Council, I am sure that Pat will be more than prepared to come and pass on her details and hopefully try and attend your next meeting where possible and where duties allow.
Do we have any more for these ladies here? No? Anyway, thank you very much indeed. We're now going to go on to the open session, which is question time at the end. And if I can welcome the Police Crime Commissioner, who's now with us. He's very, very willing to take any questions. And also as well, Councillor Lewis Rose is now with us if you have any questions for Councillor Rose. Do we have any general questions? Councillor Pullman.
Yes, I'd like to ask the Police and Crime Commissioner if you're still holding your monthly meetings at Ripley, where you allow members of the public to come for half an hour beforehand, because I looked online recently and the timetable for this year is not on there yet.
Thank you. That's because we still have public question time. The next schedule is just being worked out, so there will be times. The other people actually go to evening meetings because I think some people who are working may not be able to attend in the afternoon. So we're looking at a schedule which will be evenings, possibly about 6 o'clock in the evening on a Monday night, and there will definitely still be question times which you can actually do either in person and ask questions, or you can actually send them in either through the Facebook, Twitter or email.
Thank you.
Do we have any more open questions? Yeah, not Matt. Come on in.
I'm sorry to be a pain on
No,
this,
that's
but
fine.
this is a public meeting,
Yeah.
I presume. Why is the loop system not working, please?
Do we have any idea on that one? We'll try and find that one out for you and let you know.
Thank you.
Gentleman at the back there.
Hiya, this is really just to build on what we were referring to when we were talking about Dale Road. I'm Aaron and I live on Dale Road number 60, and I just want to kind of highlight some of the main concerns and some of the main issues we do have on Dale Road at the moment. I don't know, it has been getting progressively worse, particularly over recent months, and it seems to have come to a bit of a head. So, yeah, we're not opposed to bars in Matlock, we're not opposed to people going out, having a good time, no problem with that at all. The main issue we do have, and this is what the vast majority of residents are facing at the moment, is the opening hours. A lot of the bars, well, at least 2 of them are open until 3 a.m, and that comes as quite a shock when people find that out normally. On a regular basis, normally Friday, Saturday night and bank holidays, these bars are open till 3 in the morning, which means that then, living as close as we do to Dale Road, we get noise until 4 o'clock in the morning. And it's not particularly acceptable in what is supposed to be a residential area, for that concentration of bars where there are so many residential dwellings. Secondly, that bouncers who are on the doors at Monk Bar and at Harvey's seem to finish at closing time. They don't seem to be staffed after closing time, which is when the majority of the antisocial problems seem to happen. So people will linger, people will hang around in those areas for up to an hour, not getting taxes away, just generally, doing what they do. Breaking windows, weeing up people's garden walls, trespassing on people's property, all sorts of stuff really. I won't really go into it now. And finally, the fact that there are far too many licensed premises now on Dale Road, with more licences seemingly being granted every 5 minutes without much consideration for the impact that that's actually going to have. I know that's a slight exaggeration, but you get the idea. It's far too regularly more licences are being granted, and there are more establishments which are contributing to the problem. And the fact is, it is supposed to be a residential area, and it does seem to have got a lot worse in recent times. So, thank you.
Okay.
Is it you?
If I can make a couple of considerations now. First of all, thank you for your email that you sent earlier. It was very helpful. I think some of the things you've talked about there are some of the things we'll be wanting to look at in the next few weeks. Certainly issues of dispersal seem to be something that needs looking at, and a different model may be required. You're quite correct, some of the bars are open until 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and they have been for a long time. That's been the situation for a long time. There are currently 6 licensed pubs and clubs on Dale Road and 1 licensed members club. Altogether there are 14 licensed premises, the rest of restaurants and takeaways. So we're looking at all those. We are aware of what your concerns have been. We have noticed an increase, obviously, since just before Christmas in complaints, and we'll respond to that. I think it would be wrong to preempt what our findings will be, but I think your email was very helpful for me.
Yes, please do.
Can I just say, in terms of the issues you've raised, I can't comment on the number of licensees, and that's a matter for licensing committees and so on forth. And in terms of the noise nuisance and the ongoing issues, particularly residents living either behind the bar, particularly Monk's Bar, is something that was brought to my attention about a year ago. So it's something that I am taking particular focus on and attention. And one of the things I've been talking to Councillor Lewis Rose here as leader is that we could possibly have a meeting to discuss some of the suggestions that have come from emails and some of the officers' observations, and to see how we can actually mitigate some of the issues about noise in particular, which is being experienced by a number of residents for a number of years. So that's something that does need looking at. We did have a preliminary look at that, and some of the officers went out and assessed that. The local Safe and Neighbourhood team, particularly PCSO Carl Millard, has put forward some suggestions as to how we can actually reduce some of the noise issues. And that's something that we will convene a meeting to have a discuss and look at how what's practically possible in the near future. And that's something that's I can give a commitment to. Certainly, Lloyd, Councillor Rose will do the same.
Okay, I think one of our main concerns with that is how easily new licence seem to be given. The fact that this bar supposedly sold itself as a furniture shop until midnight selling alcohol. It's ridiculous. The fact, and now they've extended to they've applied to extend their opening hours before they've even opened, and this is a bar right out on the end of our garden.
Okay. So, as I say, in terms of issuing or not issuing license, that's a different point. But in terms of how they are regulated, you heard the community safety officer kind of talk about the intoxicated campaign. That is also about how responsible licensees are in terms of how they manage their space, but also to look at the antisocial behaviour and the noise nuisance. So we'll call a meeting to look at that and to see. I know there are some suggestions from officers and the Safe and Neighbourhood team as to how to actually tackle that, and we'll look at all those issues.
Will it be a public meeting?
Just wait for the microphone soon, would you? There we go.
Sorry, the meeting that you plan to have, will it be open to people living in that area as well?
I think that what's needed is actually action by the different agencies. So I think what you have shared today, and what the gentleman said before earlier, and what we know already, it all adds up. So I think, and I went out and did a walkabout, speak to the licensors about 8-9 months ago, and then also talk to some residents about the issue. So I think we understand what the problem is. It's the solution. So what I would like to do is actually work with the district, Derbyshire District Council, the County Council, the Community Safety Partnership team, and the Safe Neighbourhood team to see what solutions can be found. We know what the problem is finding a solution, and that requires joining up between the different agencies. And when we agree a way forward, then I think we will communicate that to you in terms of what we think is a way forward. Okay.
Well, thank you, sir. I understand that, but how long is it going to take? Because we've been fighting this thing for years now.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your frustration. As soon as possible, I will do that. I can't give you a time at the moment.
Thank you. I've got the gentleman on the back, and then if you've got the microphone as well from Tansley. The gentleman in the back, though, first.
Yeah, I've been living in Matlock last 3 years. I can see a lot of youngsters and tourists coming to the area smoking herbs and marijuana. So I was wondering, is that law allowed to do it, or how does it work? Because I don't know what's the law about
Yeah, good evening. I'm Inspector Steve Johnson, based at Chesterfield. In answer to your question, no, it's illegal to smoke cannabis. I can reassure you that there are numerous operations that go on throughout the county during the nighttime economy, passive drug searches with passive drugs, licensing checks. So there is activity that takes place, but unfortunately the reality is that the number of people smoking cannabis outweighs the capability of the police to always be there, stop people, arrest people, give caution, seize drugs. But it is something that we undertake activity around. In terms of the overall threat and risk of matters, the reality really is that somebody smoking some cannabis is not as serious as perhaps people committing other offences like assaults, child sexual exploitation, domestic violence. So if you see situations where there are no police around, it's probably because there aren't some calls for domestic violence. Rape, CSE issues, it's not that we don't care, it's just that we have to prioritise the resources we have against the threat and risk that the communities face at a particular time.
This is Rachel. There we go.
Yes, mine is about speeding traffic again. My parish council have actually sent a petition to Derbyshire County Council about the A615, which is a really dreadfully busy road with no crossings, with no pavements. We don't, although we have got a vehicle activated sign, we have very few other traffic calming facilities on the A615. We're very concerned because there doesn't seem to be any, I don't know if there's a rota for traffic cops to keep along and do speeding, stop speeding, but it's just getting worse and worse on the A615. We have got lots of children that have to cross that road, and I did wonder if Derbyshire County Council have been in touch with the police to do any traffic counts or speed surveys. Anyone knows anything about it? Because we've not heard from them quite a while.
You've got one of the ladies at the front here. Yeah.
One of the main things what you can do is contact the Crest team, which is on the Derbyshire Police website, and you can request a monitoring to be put up. I've just had it recently done at up in Darlydale. You can request, they will come, if they see that there is fit service for the Crest team to be there, then they will put it on their rota for their speed van, camera van to go to that location.
You've got a telephone number, is that just the police number or?
If you go onto the Derbyshire Police website,
okay,
you can email the Crest team directly. Or you can phone 101 and ask to speak to another team.
Thank you very much.
We've just got, we'll bring in Matlock back and then we'll come back to Tansley, okay?
I noticed in the presentation this evening, shoplifting was mentioned as one of the things the police did. Now, my reason sorry about that. It might be true. The issue that I'd like to bring forward is that in the newspapers recently, it has been said that the police are not going to pursue shoplifting anymore. Please, could you just clarify that, please? Yeah, sure.
Inspector Steve Johnson, there's been, you're right, there's discussions around that topic in terms of should police divert resources to retail shop thefts of a particular value. I think the Chief Constable is considering and reviewing those proposals, but no decision has been made as yet.
In that case, I'd like to just point out that if people are not, if people come to know that they're not going to be prosecuted, then they will with gay abandon shoplift, knowing that there's no sanction.
Yes, you're quite right, and there is that risk, and that's one of the reasons I think the Chief Constable wants to consider all possibilities around that option. We're talking about retail theft. A lot of our calls for service tend to come from large retailers that have a significant threshold when it comes to theft in terms of the ceiling that would pursue a theft. And we just have to try and balance the threat and risk that the communities are facing at the moment. The force, as you're aware, since the comprehensive spending review, has lost a significant number of police officers. And the challenge for the Chief Constable is to direct those scarce resources to other threat and risk areas that we're continually facing at the moment: cybercrime, child sexual exploitation, sexual offences, domestic violence. So we have to try and weigh up those demands, personal crimes, crimes against people, versus the retail theft crime. So yes, I think that option is being considered, but no decision has yet been made, and all those factors need to be weighed in before decisions are made. But that's the reality. That's where the police service is, not only in this force but nationally as well. Okay.
Can I just add to that?
Yes, you want to come in again? Yeah, that's nice.
I think the inspector's quite right. We haven't decided or done what you've heard in the national media about some forces, what they have already done. What they have done is that large retailers, your supermarkets and big players, there's been agreement made with them by those police forces that if there's a certain value of theft, some say £25, some say £95, within that range, those large retailers will manage that sort of criminality themselves, and if there's evidence for arrest, they will communicate with the local police. Otherwise, the police can be used for other more priority issues. I'll be having a conversation with the Chief Constable because there's no such decision made here, and I think there's a difference between the large organisations who have capabilities and resources for tackling some of those issues and liaising with the police at the right time for appropriate use of resources, because there's commitments in terms of where police can be at any one time. But I think there's a different matter. If you're a small retailer, it becomes more personal and the impact is much greater. And that's where I'll be having a discussion with the Chief Constable and Peter Goodman to see whether we can find a better solution to that area, where there's immediate, and I think the police will go, and if there's immediate issues going on, crime being committed, 999, and they will respond. If something's happened, it's gathering information, that's a different issue. So that's the discussion we're going to have. I don't envisage going to some of the places that other police forces have gone to already. We haven't done that yet. We're going to have a discussion, and I do want to make a distinction between large retailers who have got security of their own and can actually handle with these situations, to the smaller retailers whose livelihood can be negatively impacted even with small thefts going on. And that's where we'll have a discussion about how we actually respond to people who are vulnerable, whether they're individuals or they are retailers running their shop businesses.
Thank you for that.
Can I just, Karen's indicated that she wants to come in on that one as well, so can we just bring her in?
Yeah, just to follow that one up on a local level, much as what Inspector Johnson and Mr Dinsmore have just said is correct, and they're looking at the strategic operation and strategic overview of where things go. Operationally in the Derbyshire Dales, we have been taking shoplifting very seriously, and as a community safety partnership, we've been working with the Safe Neighbourhood teams, the Chamber of Commerce out on the ground. We've been doing a lot of education with shop owners, with shop managers, trying just to get that, raise that profile and make them realise how important it is for them to report incidents. Unfortunately, one of the things we do often suffer with is what we class as teams of people coming on to us. So it's not necessarily your Ashton resident, your Matlock resident going in and nicking a few things from a shop. It is an organised team coming on and actually doing an organised job of what they are stealing. Not necessarily just in the one town, it can be in all of the towns. And that also links to when we talk about purse thefts and when we talk about bag thefts and all those type of things. So we've been doing a lot of work to try and educate people that actually that one theft that they think happens does need shouting up, and using the Shopwatch tree, the Shopwatch radio, the Shopwatch WhatsApp, whatever they've got in their particular town, village, because it may have an impact and it may hopefully get some results in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, both of you.
Did you just want to come back with another one?
I would like to say that I'm speaking on behalf of the small businesses, and in particular one in Matlock Bath, which suffers greatly from the visitors who come with caravans and park in the car park free of charge. And your point about teams, that's quite true. Half a dozen of the children will come to this shop and wipe up as much as they can, and if they're not stopped at the door, there's problems, obviously, for that retailer. Considerable problems of loss.
Did you want to come back?
Yes, I can do. Obviously, you know, we can't stop those people coming onto the area, but we can work with the intelligence picture that we're given, we can work with the information that we've got, and we do work in partnership where we can to try and reduce those issues and try and make things better for the residents.
Thank you for that. We'll go to Townsley.
No. It's just going back to the speed in traffic when you were talking about it. You know the police motorcyclist that comes with the camera? I went talking to him one day and saying, how you doing, how many do you think you've caught? And he says, it's very difficult because the cars flash each other. I know you can't stop them, they've got signs which they know. And he said to me, he said, the trouble is on this road is finding somewhere safe to stand with the camera gun and catch them. So that's another problem we've got. I mean, if the police can't find somewhere safe, how can they expect other people to get across these roads and things? I just wondered, you know, if anything could be done in that side of things.
One of the main things what we do is look at community speed watches, and we have got several successful ones up and running in the Dales. One of the main problems what we do have when we're doing the enforcement is that they have to pull a car over, and they have to be able to get out of the way if the car swerves towards them, things like that. So we have to think about whether the area's got footpaths, if there's a car park to pull them into, and things like that. That's one of the main things we would, look at doing. If you would want to volunteer to do for your town to set up a community speed watch, we're quite happy to help you with that. We do it in several towns. Again, it would be in a location where we wouldn't want to put you at risk. The layout of the roads around here, they're not perfect, and they've been like this for years, and we're never going to be able to change them to a perfectly straight road where you can see for miles. But it's a case of there is options that we can do it as volunteers. By the sounds of it, the press team is coming out then if the guy on the bike is coming out. But you can take my details at the end. I'm quite happy to set up a community speed watching up in Tansley.
Thank you very much. We've got Councillor Martin Burford, then we've got Councillor Sue.
Sorry, could I just...
I'll bring you back in again after those two, okay.
Yes, thank you. As a local councillor, obviously I'm aware of the budget constraints that the police, resource constraints that the police face, but do they have a dedicated team or an officer in this area, particularly looking at planning applications and licence applications when they're submitted, either for bars on Dale Road, for instance, or looking at planning applications, for instance, because we find that highways engineers, county council, are very reluctant to recommend crossings, for instance, or speed limits, where you've got, particularly on Chesterfield Road in Matlock, between the two developments on the outskirts of the town. So I wonder if the police actually do request these sort of facilities when planning applications are submitted, and whether in bars, as very often we find with the bars, when there's a licence for a planning application, there's no objection from the local police. So we can't understand this is where residents are frustrated when they call the police when there's an issue and they're not interested in responding to that complaint. And at the same time, they're not objecting to these bars being proposed at the start of the exercise.
In relation to planning applications, can you just expand on that? Are you talking about new builds, or are you just focusing on licensing activities?
Both licensing planning applications for bars and also planning applications for housing developments, where there are probably, I'm talking about Tansy as well, where there are issues in terms of people crossing the road safely.
Yeah, well, in relation to general planning applications, there's no dedicated resource in the police for that. In terms of licensing, then the local authority, of course, are the granting or issuing authority, and the police are considered one of the responsible authorities. And the process that we go through principally is to review the person's application, so the physical person's application, be it a personal licence or a designated premises supervisor, and then the premises licence as well. We'll undertake some checks to see whether or not the person is a suitable character, check the police national computer, check local intelligence systems, and that, from a policing perspective, is probably as far as we would go in terms of raising an objection. If someone wasn't of a suitable character, then we would raise the objection. In relation to other aspects, then there are other responsible authorities that have that responsibility and I suppose power to make other objections. The fire service, the council themselves. But in terms of the police role, it's about the person.
So you would have a role in that case, in terms of a planning application, in raising objections because of previous antisocial activity within the area, for instance, in terms of a cumulative impact of too many bars in an area where you've been called out time and time again to antisocial behaviour issues.
Yes, we do look at calls for service in relation to a particular area. In relation to Dale Road, since January 2014, collectively there's been 27 calls to the police. That's not a big issue from a police perspective. Well, okay, well, I can only encourage you that if there are issues going, I'm not talking about noise issue within the premises, but if there's issues on the street, then you must phone the police, because we've got scarce resources and we have to divert those resources where we think there's a need. Since January 2017 to date, there's been about 27 calls collectively around premises on Dale Road that we can research. And then the nature of those calls for service, again, don't carry a lot of threat and risk. But by way of example, we've got premises elsewhere in the division where our licensing department have had to put an emergency closure on the pub. We've had people with facial injuries, ears bitten off, fractured sockets elsewhere in the division. So you can see, when we've got limited resources, we divert those resources to those areas. I can really encourage you to make those calls for service for us. Okay. In addition to that, before we leave, myself and my colleague, Detective Constable Timperley, will have a discussion with you about setting up some type of meeting. Introduce ourselves, let you know what we do, how we do it, and run in parallel with BCC's plans to try and help resolve the issues. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to add a little to that. I'm Rebecca Timperley, the licensing officer for High Peak and Dales for the police. There are 3 officers now that cover this area. We all work together and we're all proactive. There have been operations that have been occurring since October last year. The intoxicated programme is one. And we are working together with various authorities, the council included, to work together to have other operations in the near future.
Councillor Sue Burford.
Thank you.
Can you just talk into microphone, Sue? So
as the county councillor for Matlock, I did go along with Mrs. Brains from Tansy Parish Council, and we've they did all the work actually, but they presented a big petition about the A615 to the cabinet member at the county council. Now, what I'm not very clear about still is whether the police have had any input, whether they've been actually asked by the county council highways department for their view on the dangers of the A615, because I think it's absolutely crucial that the police do have some input into that investigation. We've been waiting quite a long time now to hear any kind of result from this petition, so we're kind of sitting there with bated breath, worrying that it's going to be, sorry, there isn't a problem, we're not going to do anything. So I'm really concerned that the police do actually have some input into this investigation, into the A615 as a result of this petition. And I just wonder whether we could get a van up there really quickly to try and get some data to feed into the highways department. I mean, there must also be details of accidents and near accidents. I don't know whether police get hold of insurance, details of any insurance claims that there have been to show that there are accidents there. It is dangerous, and there needs to be something done basically.
Okay, there's nobody here tonight that can answer those questions. What I will do, if I can take the details, and I'll pass them on to the inspector in charge of road policing for the force, okay, and see if we can enter into some dialogue with you. I can only talk in general terms. It's not my area of responsibility, but the road policing unit have, in general, a scoring matrix that they use, and that information is pulled from various different sources, not just the police, but the local authority, highways agency. And as a consequence of that pooling of information, they will then target specific roads and then direct their resources to those areas. If that road isn't one of them, then they won't spend time monitoring that road because it's not as dangerous as other roads in the county. However, there are local issues or local resources that may well be able to help, and as my colleague alluded to earlier, there are local initiatives that can be put together. So the Safe and Able team will go in and try and troubleshoot a particular area or problem. And I'm assuming you still undertake or ask local residents to partake in speed walks. Do you still do that? Yeah, including the speed walk. So if we find that the road policing unit can't direct resources to this road because it's just not as dangerous or as busy as the other ones in the county, then we'll be looking at a local resource to try and resolve some of the issues. Somebody mentioned about traffic calming measures. That's the highways agency. I don't know if you've navigated this problem before, but if you want things put on the road, things put on the side of the road, you've got to make representation to the highways agency.
In actual fact, we've approached absolutely everyone, and we realise the biggest people that are letting us down actually is the local authority, because they're passing planning applications knowing there are problems on these busy roads, putting their heads in the sand. We know it's not the police. We know we need information from you. We've had information from you. We know that we are above the threshold, the speed. We're over the percentile. Is it 38 percentile?
I don't know.
We're over the percentile. We have been coming to this council for years now, telling them about the A615 and developing the other side, and they just keep ignoring us. We just keep coming because that is a fact. I guess when somebody's killed, they probably will, say something. But at the moment, it isn't actually Derbyshire County Council's fault. They should put in a proper assessment of the highways. This they should. But we've got a district council here that ignore lots of the facts and fortunately there are quite a few councillors here that have made decisions that affect people's lives, and they are in a position to get 106 agreements. They haven't got SIL in place. They've been trying to do that for years, so we've missed so many opportunities. So it's this council, it's not the police. So please don't think it's your fault. We are asking the police for help to try and get more evidence to back up our case. But I suppose the more evidence we get, we have still got an intransigent district council planning who will not listen. So it is clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody wants to go back on that one. I'm sort of keeping an eye on the clock here. We're now almost approaching 9 o'clock. If anybody has got any more questions, sorry, did you want to come back in again from Tansley?
Yeah, it's just very quick. Can you please tell me why, when they're doing speed cameras, why does it have to be published in the Mercury? I mean, why do you warn people about it, where they're going to be?
My understanding is it's normally after the event.
No, it tells you where, it tells you what day they come in and everything.
Okay. I don't know, it's not my area of business.
I think it's a very good idea.
I don't know. My understanding is that it's the crest unit that I'm being publicised that. I suppose, I mean, thinking out loud now, I would imagine it gives any potential prosecution more footing. So if you advertise the fact that you're going to do some law enforcement activity, speeding activity, and you publicise that, and then you go out and use your equipment and stop a motorist speeding, then it probably adds greater conviction and greater glue to the whole prosecution process. That's the only thing I can think of. Really. It gives people opportunity to comply with the law. If they don't comply and they break the law, then really it's been well
It's just a
publicised.
question. To me, it just seems stupid just to publish it where we're going to be sat.
No, I know it's not. You're getting caught, Mr.
Right, can I thank everybody? I think we've had a good few fair old topics on tonight. We've had a good few questions. You certainly made use of the police presence here tonight. And thank you very much for those in attendance. And thank you very much to everybody for your participation in this. Please can I ask you if you could fill out the feedback form and hand it in at the end. That would be very, very helpful. And please take care going home tonight. Thank you very much indeed.
Hi, all right.